haven't done one of these videos in a while, so if this sit down video is kind of awkward and full of cuts and weird pauses, then I apologise. I haven't done a sit down video in a while because I haven't really had time. But what better time to restart than the beginning of a new month. I read a total of 10 books in February. It was a really good reading month. And first of all, I'm going to talk about my statistics, and then I'll get on to talking about the actual books. So for my stats, I read a total of 10 books. Like I said, these added up to 4,299 pages, which was 3 pages less than last month when I read 14 books, I think. So I think that's really good going. I am very proud of that. It does mean that I'm reading longer books, and I'm reading on average 143 pages a day, which is fantastic. That's over an hour's worth of reading, so I'm really happy with that. My average rating is, again, 3.2, which I feel like is going to be the norm for this year. I'm quite critical when it comes to the books that I read, and this month was no exception. I bought a total of 5 books, and you'll be seeing a book haul soon. I spent £38 on all of those books because I bought most of them brand new from Waterstones. As for the genres, I read 1 mystery book, 1 non-fiction book, 2 thriller books, 2 fantasy books and 4 contemporary books, which makes sense because the contemporary-a-thon was running in February and I took part. I read 4 backlist titles and 6 new releases. 7 of the books that I read were YA and 3 were adult. My star ratings were pretty average for me. I read 1 1-star book, 2 2-star books, 2 3-star books and 5 4-star books. No 5-star books though this month, I'm afraid. Probably because I didn't get around to reading Kingdom of Copper. And now onto the books. This month I'm actually going to do this a bit differently. I've done this in the past a couple of times, but usually I talk about the books in the order that I read them. But this month I'm just going to go from worst to best, so that way we end the video on a high note. The worst book I read in February was The Truth About Keeping Secrets. This was an advanced reader's copy that I got from the publisher for free in exchange for an honest review. I gave this 1 star. I didn't really enjoy it. I read about 40 pages of it before I started skimming. This is a YA thriller. It's about a girl called Sydney whose father dies in a car accident, and she's convinced that it wasn't an accident. She thinks that something dodgy was going on. This makes her really paranoid, and she starts to suspect a few people, namely another girl called June. And then a romance blossoms between June and Sydney, and it's all very gay and fantastic, except I didn't like this book. I didn't think it was very thrilling. I think the author was going for more of a contemporary vibe with a little bit of mystery thrown in there. And to market this as a thriller is not really helping the book because it's, like I said, not thrilling. I thought it was very boring. Another bad book that I read is one that I'm very cautious to mention because it's beloved in the YA community, and that is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This is a YA fantasy. It blew up last year. It was her debut. Everyone loved it and everyone was talking about it, and I finally got around to reading it. I got this months and months ago, but I just didn't get around to reading it, and I finally gave it a go and I didn't enjoy it. I'm going to give this one 2 stars. Please don't kill me. This book is about a girl called, doesn't say on the back of the book, Leigh, and she is part of a group, let's say, who are oppressed due to their ability to wield magic. The king or emperor is trying to get rid of magic completely, but he's not doing a great job. The king's daughter runs away and meets Leigh, and then the two of them go on the run along with Leih's brother, and then they're also being chased by the prince. It was just very generic and boring, and I didn't really enjoy it. I thought that the writing style was odd. I'm trying very hard to find an example right now. I felt like the author was trying really hard to be dramatic every scene, and she would start new paragraphs just for like 1 sentence to try to have a dramatic effect. Sorry, I'm just trying to find an example, 1 second. Okay, for example, this is right at the back of the book, but it's not a spoiler. I will shield anything that's spoilery. So as you can see here, she starts a new paragraph for every single sentence. That carried on throughout the entire book, and it was really annoying and it was very jarring, and I think that's the main thing that put me off, as well as the fact that there was nothing original in this story. I thought it was, I don't know, I've read this book before, and that's a shame because I was fully prepared to give this one 5 stars, but I didn't really like it. I then read an ebook, and that was The Dark Lake by Sarah Bailey. This is an adult thriller. I gave this one 2.5 stars because I didn't really enjoy it all that much. It's about a detective called Gemma. One day one of her ex-classmates is murdered and she has to investigate. She does that, but then she also spends a lot of time cheating on her long-term partner and not spending very much time with her young son. I really didn't like her, and that's the reason why I rated it so low. I thought that the mystery was intriguing, and I don't think I guessed who had done it. I really didn't like Gemma, and I couldn't get past that. I thought she was an awful main character, and I hated the cheating, and at no point did she seem to feel bad about the fact that she was cheating on her long-term partner who was raising her son while she was doing her job. I just really didn't like her, and I do have an e-arc of her Sarah Bailey's next book, and I'm quite hesitant to read it because I don't know if Gemma is a character that's going to grow on me. I can't imagine that she is. Then there was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, which I read for my Books and Lala challenge, which I will link up above. I basically challenged myself in January to read every single one of Kayla's favourite books of 2018, and I managed it, and I was really proud of myself. This was the last one that I read for that challenge, and I gave this one 3 stars. This has been likened to The Secret History. The main characters are all part of a drama group, and one of them dies, and they spend the entire time quoting Shakespeare to each other, and it was really freaking annoying. If you want my in-depth thoughts on this one, go and check out my challenge video. Put it bluntly, I was bored by this book because it was all Shakespeare references, and I appreciate Shakespeare, I do, but when it goes on and on for pages and pages, I start to get a bit bored. And the main characters were quoting Shakespeare in the middle of very dramatic and important events that were happening to them, and I just thought it was a bit silly. So I gave this one 3 stars. And now we're getting on to my 4-star books, so I've got some more positive things to say about these. The first one is Heroine by Mindy McGinnis. I received this one as a review copy from the publisher for free. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. This is about a girl. She is really into sports, and one evening she and her friend get into a car accident, and she severely damages her leg, which means she is prescribed painkillers, and then she gets addicted to these painkillers and drugs, and later on heroin. And it's kind of like a dark, spiraling, twisty contemporary. It's a very hard read. I don't normally find reading about addicts that uncomfortable because I don't really have much personal experience with it, like directly. Some of my very close friends have, but personally it's something that I can normally read about quite easily. But in this case I was struggling a little bit because the main character was going into such a spiral, and I felt absolutely awful for her, and it was through no fault of her own to begin with, because it wasn't her fault. She got into an accident and got addicted to these drugs. They're really freaking addictive. No one was helping her. So I really like this. I did find it very difficult to read, and I got a little bit upset. I would highly recommend it, and it comes out in March, so you guys can read it soon. Then there was Internment, which was another review copy from the publisher. This one is set in present day United States, where Muslims start to be segregated from society and put into internment camps, and it's all very World War II era. It's also freaking terrifying because it could probably happen in Trump's America, and it's really disturbing that it could. So the main character is put into an internment camp in California, and she basically struggles to get her freedom back. Again, this one was a difficult read, especially because I thought that it was so realistic and it could so easily be done. I really enjoyed it, and I know that people are going to say that the main character made stupid decisions and she should have kept her head down. Her own parents told her that in the camp, but at the same time you need to fight for what you want, and also she's a teenager, so shut up. So 4 stars for this one, just because I do feel it could have gotten a bit darker. And then there was King of Scars, which I've done a full reading vlog on. This is obviously Nikolai's book in the Grishaverse. I really enjoyed it. It's a good YA fantasy, but it didn't really blow me away. I was expecting more Nikolai, less Nina, less of that ending, because I really didn't like that. It was jarring and cheap and didn't like it. But at the same time, I really loved Nikolai's bits and Isaac's bits, and I also grew to really enjoy Nina's chapters, so that was good. The next book I'm going to talk about is On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. This is her sophomore book. I really enjoyed this one. It's about a girl called Bree who wants to be a rapper, and she goes to a rap battle one evening and she gets noticed basically, and things start to happen, and she gets some sort of like internet fame, and she has to juggle that along with stuff happening at school, such as racial profiling, and also her mother losing her job and having to go to food banks. I thought this was very hard-hitting. The poverty stuff really got to me. I couldn't really relate to the gang violence or anything, or the racial profiling obviously, but the poverty, the fact that the family's electricity was cut off and they were having to go to food banks and plan ahead so much for their meals, really got to me. I didn't love this one as much as I loved The Hate You Give, but it was still a very, very good book and I'd highly recommend it. Book number 9 is Opposite of Always. This is, I guess, a contemporary with a bit of magical realism slash sci-fi because the main character ends up time traveling. Basically, his girlfriend dies and he goes back in time to try to save her. I thought this was really, really well written. It's a debut book and it was fantastic. I gave it 4 stars. The only reason I didn't give it 5, I think, was because it didn't make me cry. I don't know, I just have weird standards for books, and this one didn't make me cry, so it didn't get 4 stars because it just didn't hit me where it could have. But nonetheless, it was really, really enjoyable. I loved the main character's relationships that he was struggling to juggle. It seemed as though every time he went back in time, because he goes back multiple times, he was messing something up, or if he saved one person, another person got neglected, and it was just really interesting to read about, and I would highly recommend it. And finally, the last book that I want to talk about is also the last book that I read in February, and that is Educated by Tara Westover. This is one that everyone's been talking about. It's non-fiction, it's a memoir by Tara Westover, who grew up as a Mormon, and her dad is very, like, extreme. He's on the extreme end of the scale, and he believes in the end of days and preparing for it. And it said that he could have undiagnosed bipolar disorder, which affects his moods and also affects the children who he was meant to be raising. It was very, very difficult for me to read this one. A lot of things in it were things that I could relate to, and I had to keep taking breathers because some of the things that were happening were just awful. It's very violent and bloody and gory and abusive. Not the book, but the family are abusive. I did really, really enjoy reading it, so I gave this one 4 stars as well. I wouldn't say it was eye-opening to me, but I did adore reading about how Tara Westover left all of that behind her eventually and was able to pursue her own career despite having gone through all of that. So I would highly recommend reading this one. Not necessarily if you're interested in reading about Mormonism, more so if you're interested in reading about abusive families and how people can overcome those and outgrow them and still be a successful person. So that's it. That's my February wrap up. Hopefully it wasn't too awkward considering this is the first time I've been on camera for a while. I'll be back very soon with my March TBR. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.